If you're thinking about switching careers to video editing, then stick around because we're going to be speaking to a guest, a previous student of Unsplice, who moved from physical therapy to now working for a reality TV show. He's going to tell us his journey, how he got there, and some of the things he learned along the way. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Video Editing Podcast from Unsplice. If you didn't know me, my name is Shiny, and today we're going to be speaking to Matt. Matt is an old student of Unsplice, an alumni, as the official term goes, and he did the technical workflow course way before Unsplice Pro was even a thing. This was a full-day course, and it was dedicated to teaching the entirety of technical knowledge needed to essentially become an assistant editor. So things like all the codecs, transcoding, subtitles, string outs, multicam sequences, everything needed to know before you actually start editing, the creative process of editing. So that was back in the day, that was a full day training. Now, of course, it's split and it is available inside Unsplice Pro in more manageable chunks. You don't need to take an entire day out of your schedule to do it. And Matt has since moved into reality TV as a story producer. We're going to learn a little bit about what that role entails, what it actually means, and how he got there from where he was. It's been a year and a half since we spoke, and so a lot has happened. And we speak about his path going forward from here, and what the general path is, and how he's expecting to move his career forward from here. So stick around, because if you are also thinking about moving careers, especially if you're thinking about moving from the health profession, then this one is definitely for you. Quick interruption to just let you know that the cost of Unsplice Pro is going up on April the 1st. That's because the amount of value inside Unsplice Pro has grown massively. Right now, you get access to all of the back catalog of courses, plus every single month there is new training happening. So you'll be able to take wherever you are in your career, you'll be able to learn industry standard practices from the moment that you get the asset to how to tell the best story. So if you have been dying to learn industry standard practices, head to unsplice.com/pro. On April the 1st, the cost is going to be going up by $50. And whatever the price you pay when you join, that's the price you will pay for as long as you're a member. So if the price increases in the future, you will get around that. So get in before April the 1st to pay the cheapest amount you will ever have the ability to pay for access to Unsplice Pro. Within there, you have access to all of the training, but also you get access to me. We have weekly sessions, small group sessions, where you can ask any questions about your edit that you are working on at the moment, software questions, career questions, whatever. Also, you get direct feedback on your edits. So if you are practicing or if you're working on a live project, drop your edit inside Unsplice Pro and you will get feedback from me and the community on how to improve. So head to unsplice.com/pro before April the 1st to sign up and get Unsplice Pro for the cheapest it will ever be. All right, back to the podcast. So tell me, where are you right now? Because the last time we spoke was you just finished the technical workflow module.
Yeah.
Which was like it wasn't quite 2 years ago. It's like a year and a half ago.
Kind of where I was at then was getting a little bit more familiar with just editing as a whole. I knew at that point that that was my focus, and by trying to establish some resources and network, I eventually met you and really liked what you were doing in terms of providing educational, a huge educational resource for people that are kind of getting a start in the industry and even
Thank you.
carrying out their career through that. Um, so one of the first things I did was reach out to you to get your advice, and you took the mindset of, well, the approach of, okay, you need to know the technical workflow first. You have that as your foundation, and you build on that. And that really stuck with me, and ended up enrolling in the course. And so it was excellent. Learned a lot, really got a lot of what I feel to be a good foundation from that, and just
Great.
continued to build off of it. I had already had some connections and network resources through doing some PA work early when I was transitioning into this industry.
Mm.
And
Was that local, or how did you find the PA work?
I was at a point where I knew that I wanted to seek out further this path into this industry, and just for the record, my background's in healthcare. So I'm a physical therapist. I was working as a physical therapist for, well, it's crazy to say it out loud, but now it's 9 years, and I think to about 6 or 7 of those it was full time. And I got to the point where I knew that I was wanting a change, and I really admired the film industry, but being from the East Coast and in the U.S., it was something that was a bit foreign because there's just not a lot of that around here.
Mm.
So I looked for ways to learn about it, learn about the industry, and what opportunities are out there, and find what kind of my niche and my passion was within it, if there was to be one.
Mhm.
So I started gathering as much information as I could from people, and came through. Got involved with a website called Staff Me Up, and does a lot of pairing production work with PAs and other things, and started PAing some gigs, and some of them were local, some of them weren't. I fortunately, with that time period, I knew that I wanted to fully commit to this at that point. So I knew that I had to be open-minded about maybe there's going to be some travel. I knew that PAs, you're not going to get, I can't live off that. But fortunately, I have that physical therapy background, to where I could still work part-time and as needed to be able to
Mm.
kind of fund those efforts a little bit and
What
build
was
on them.
it? What was it that drew you to the film industry? You say you knew at that point this is where you wanted to focus your energy. What was it that appealed to you?
Well, I think that I always had an interest in it. I mean, going back to even when I was little, not having a whole lot of exposure around here, it almost seemed a little bit foreign. But I knew that I loved TV, I loved film, and I knew that with my personality that I have a creative side that I wanted to explore, that I didn't feel like I was really getting with
Mhm.
what I was doing in the capacity that I wanted. So it got to a point where it was I want to see what this is all about. I want to explore
Yeah.
it, and that started very local. That was getting involved with some church productions and
Mhm.
production teams with that, and some big churches in the area, and then getting involved with at some acting groups and I ended up doing a little bit of editing for them, just kind of
Mhm.
fun promos and teasers that they could use for the website and for social media content.
Yeah,
Not a big
it's
social
great.
media guy, so I knew that wasn't what I wanted to do.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
it's all a healthy experience, though, isn't it? It all adds up.
yeah, but the editing piece I did.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that was when I kind of said, all right, I've narrowed it down to this is the direction I want to go. And that's when I
that's
really
great.
kind of tried to pursue those steps to move forward with being open-minded about, okay, maybe I'm going to drive a little bit and do some PA things to, if I found that I might establish some good relationships here, some people I can talk to, some people that might plug me in, but just not really good opportunities to learn more, right? And kind of
Yeah,
develop. So
great.
that was
And I
where
guess that's how you get a taste for it.
exactly, and that was how I met the supervising producer that I'm now working for.
Yeah, great. Yeah,
So
so it
yeah,
was all a kind. It was a chain of events, really, that led to the current opportunity.
yeah, and it was interesting because all this was kind of evolving around the pandemic.
Yeah,
So it was I knew that I wanted to make that jump before the pandemic, but that really shed some light into um, I know this is the way I want to go, and
yeah,
I have the background, the foundation that I can do that and commit to it. So that
yeah.
was
It
that,
kind of
and kind of move
set
forward.
the fire alight.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, great. I think it's a lot of people share the same experience in terms of just COVID, setting this, creating this realization of the job that they had and what the things that they did enjoy about that, that perhaps actually, and they took for as pluses or took for granted. Perhaps when they were taken away, they realized it wasn't as peachy as they first thought.
Yeah, I think
What,
in addition to that, it really provided a almost forced time
mm,
period of self-reflection.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
think if you didn't use that time for personal growth, you were really missing out on one of the few bright spots to come from that.
mhm. Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean the whole situation was tragic, but it was the perfect time to reflect and
Right, right.
figure out where our energy should go.
What your priorities are.
Yeah, which yes, perfectly said. Um, Going back to your physical therapy days, what was it that made you think I need to switch?
Yeah, I mean, it was a combination of factors. It wasn't one specific thing. As I mentioned, I believe I'd been working roughly 7 years full time at that point in some different settings. And I really liked PT. I liked it a lot. Um, I was surrounded by different people and there were, different creative aspects to um, figuring out diagnoses and determining plans of care and executing them. So I think it came down to the point where I kind of felt like I was getting a little bit burned out.
Yeah,
And that was kind of like that seed was kind of developing in my mind. And I didn't feel like it was really getting better,
yeah,
despite some setting changes and some different things I was doing for that. I also felt like as much as I liked it, I wasn't really passionate. I didn't feel passionate about it.
yeah,
And honestly, at the time, I didn't know that editing was my passion either.
yeah,
But
yeah. Of course.
that was kind of when that self-reflection period, and that time came where I say, okay, I can be stuck in this situation, and yeah, I'll be stable and have a job for the next 20 years, but is that really what I want to be doing? I don't want to look back in 20 years and say I didn't at least try something else that may have been a better fit for me.
Yeah.
And as I experimented with that, I kept going a little bit further until that narrowed down into, okay, this is the way I want to go.
Yeah.
And I think what helped me too was knowing that I'll always have that. I'll always have the ability to say, particularly with freelance, if there's a slow period where I need more work, I can pick up some PT gigs and have some work there. And in fact, I still do. I still do that sometimes. So I stay relatively fresh in that, but certainly devote most of my full-time efforts to editing at this point.
Yeah. The new role that you have, what's the name of the role? And is presumably it's full-time, it's not a freelance gig, is that right?
Well, maybe I misspoke a little bit. It's a story producer, and essentially it's still freelance. However, the hours I'm putting in fall along the full-time category.
Yeah.
So it's a story producer role, and going into it, I had some questions just about what exactly that entailed. But as the name suggests, there's a storytelling element to it that was appealing to me. And so basically, with reality, there's a ton of footage. It's a big production a lot of times, and in this case, it's a big one. So a lot of moving
TV shows, right?
Right. And so there's a lot of moving pieces. There's a lot of footage. When that footage comes in, it gets sorted by the assistant editors, and then the story producers kind of have the first stab at it and taking and drawing what footage you want to use to kind of craft a story, which will then kind of work up that chain to editor and supervising producer and network and back and forward until it's a finished product. So that's kind of what that role entails. I mentioned that for this show we use Avid, which is media composer, which is common for reality TV when you have big productions and a lot of people involved. So the sharing aspect of that's good.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So
that's why I think a lot of studios use Avid, is the ability to have many people working on the same project without stepping on each other's toes. There is no other editing software quite like Avid for that.
And being able to do that remotely is excellent.
So all of your jobs are remote at the moment?
At the moment, yes. At the moment, I'm across the country from
Amazing.
where that is produced. Now it's a traveling show, so sometimes they come this way for filming. But I work exclusively at home right now. I think some of the assistant editors are in the office at times in the studio. But yeah, story producers, editors, mostly remote. And thanks to some of the technological advances that have come during the past few years, we're able to do that. And it's been great from that standpoint, because it allows me to really be able to, maintain the lifestyle that I want and need right now, to continue to go in that direction. So,
yeah. And that's exactly what you were looking for when you were coming from your PT days. And it's the freedom of movement and being able to be fully remote.
And then
it's come to life.
Yeah. Well, talking to you about it, I was like, man, this is It's a good deal. I like this. I can get used to this. You know, with the physical
Great.
therapy, I'm always on site. So
Yeah,
it was a different, it was an adjustment for sure, but a good one.
of course. Yeah. How was your home office setup before, and how is it now?
Yeah, it's coming along. It's coming
Great.
along. I started with the basics, and you know, ended up getting a MacBook that is pretty legit, and just kind of started building on that and getting pieces here and there. But I've definitely turned it into my area, so
Great.
I can lock in and do what I need to do.
Yeah. Yeah, that helps. So you just had a laptop beforehand and you were just starting with that?
I had, yeah, basically, and then I had a I don't know, like a 20 something inch Dell monitor,
Yeah.
and worked with that for a while, and then I recently got an ultra wide, so now I'm kind of bouncing around the three of those, and yeah, and then kind of from an ergonomics side, I've upgraded my my
Great.
situation with mouse and a chair and some other
Yeah.
things to make sure, you know,
Yeah.
for me that I'm not putting too much strain on myself
Yeah. So
unnecessarily.
you're building it out as you go along. You don't need a huge setup to start. And that wasn't a
Yeah, I mean,
prerequisite when you started the job.
you really don't. A lot of it too is personal preference.
Yeah.
I mean, I know people that work on the show and various roles that just work with them, just have a laptop.
Yeah.
They work
Yeah. And that
on
can work.
Avid on the laptop.
Hmm. Yeah. I've seen people who just work in cafes because are you connecting to machines on a remote
Hmm.
location?
Yeah. So
Is that right?
They use Jump Desktop, which
Yeah.
is yeah, a remote system, and I basically just use it and work on it at the house. Although I could take it. I mean, I like to have the screens and stuff, the monitors, and you know, some of the other stuff, but um and the speed, because I'm able to directly tap in
Yeah.
to the internet. But you know, if I was to go to a cafe or coffee shop, I would be able to do that as well, and just work with the laptop. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's nice in
Perfect.
that aspect too. You can kind of
Yeah.
get a change of scenery or get out
If
of the
the
house
baby's
if you get
screaming and
yeah,
yeah.
you get a little cabin fever, that sort of thing, which happens.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, 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 absolutely. So, tell me a little bit more about your day-to-day roles as a story producer. What does a story producer actually do?
yeah, so I mentioned before that all that extraordinary amounts of footage come in, and it's sorted and grouped as timely as possible for the amount that, you know, the amount that there is. And so what my job is to take that and extract the interesting pieces and put it into a bigger story. And
Is that within Avid? Are you pulling selects onto a timeline?
yeah, yeah. So everybody kind of has their own way of going about getting to that in string result to then pass on. What I'll typically do is I'll find the footage that I might use and put it in a timeline, and then I'll start my rough cuts from there and kind of whittle it down. And the first few are pretty massive cuts of
Sure.
footage out of that, and then from there I'll kind of bring it down and down and down, and then simultaneously be moving the pieces with the story in mind. But because the first thing I'll do is I'll watch the entire footage. So I'll
How
take
many
a bit.
hours are we talking here?
Well, yeah, I mean it's variable, but you know, typically you'll take a chunk, right, and say, I'm going to take this scene, or I'm going to take this portion of what's going to be the episode, and I'm going to find that story within from that. So you kind of watch through all of that and formulate in your mind, how's this going to look? How's this going to work? And then from there, as you're cutting out, whittling down, and you move things around, you figure out what works, what looks better in certain places, what flows the best, and until it, eventually becomes a finished product on your end, which then we go to the next person, which is the editor, and what they'll typically do from that point is then they might add in some scene setting shots or things of that nature, and then what they'll do is add in music and refine the audio, mix it a little bit more, and a little bit of graphics work, bit of graphics, but a lot of that's already ready to roll. So
yeah. So what does the timeline look like when you hand it to the editor? What's the duration, and you just got everything on one single track and it's just a bunch of selects?
Yeah, so essentially, yes. It comes down to one completed string. And based on the show and what you're working with will determine the length. But essentially that's what it is you might have a few different sequences that you're pulling those selects from, and there's a lot of times I'll get a little bit further down the chain and then say, well, actually there was a piece that I remember that I think can fit here well. I can go back a couple of those rough cuts ago and grab it and put it in and kind of do that. But yes, eventually it comes down to, depending on the show, it'll vary as far as like how long it'll typically take to do that. And once you get that down, then that's one sequence. It's a completed string. The editor will take it, look at it, and go from there.
Nice.
And then what you have is a number of story producers, and they're each taking sections of what will be that episode and doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And then that'll go to the editor, sometimes the same one or a different one, and then it goes back and forth a little bit as it continues to get polished to that final product.
Okay, nice. And so have you found that presumably you're practicing your storytelling skills every time you're doing this, and like you said, you would end up pulling some dialogue that you heard and you thought actually that would fit perfectly here. So as you're doing all of this, you're essentially flexing your storytelling muscles.
Absolutely. And I love that aspect of it because it allows me to really have a lot of control over the creative direction of the episode.
Nice.
And that aspect of it is done a lot more in my hands than what the editor does in a lot of cases. And that's probably specific to a larger production like this, because you have those specific roles. And instead of kind of that combined one. But at the same time, I'm able to do a lot within the editing, and I can kind of take that as far as I want if I'm able to do that in a timely manner, which is coming. Some of those elements of effects and things are coming along to the point where they're not taking me as long. So I have time to be able to do that and shorten up that time span that editor's going to need to spend on it.
Yeah. You're getting faster as you go.
Yeah, which is a valuable thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next step from here is presumably editor.
Yeah, I check in with my supervising producer occasionally. And I mean, we set out to knowing that that was going to be the goal. And I'm glad that I went this route, and I like, I like story producing. I like it a lot. But yeah, I'm ready for that
Yeah.
challenge in its own sense.
Yeah.
And I'm continuing to work towards that, which I'm hoping will be in the next few months, where
Great.
I can you know, take that on and shift over into that role.
Awesome. It's great that
Yeah.
you have that foresight, and it's great that you're having the conversation as well, with the producers, and they're open about that, because it can be kind of daunting when you go into these roles to just feel like, am I going to be here for longer than I'm comfortable?
Yeah.
Um, and so having that conversation at the beginning is really great to hear.
Yeah. And you really have to be proactive about driving that, you
Yeah.
know. I mean, you think about whether it's the supervising producer or anybody else, they're busy, you know, they're busy. They've
Yeah.
got their own things going on. And, you know, the more above you they are, they're probably even the busier. So they're not going to remember that. I mean, they may remember that this is what you want to do, or you're kind of what you're working to, but they're not
Yeah.
going to be the ones that are going to kind of make sure that that's happening. They don't have the time. You have to set those goals and those timelines and make sure you're the one that's being proactive about making it happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, exactly. Nobody, it's really difficult because you've already said you're one of several story producers. And so all of you
Right.
are essentially vying for the same position. And whilst you're collaborating at this point, you're all working together as a team. Um, there is this an element almost of competition, of just kind of like just being the brightest star in a sense. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to be the best per se, but just being top of mind whenever an opportunity arises up.
Yeah, I think you have different personalities. I mean, some people they love the story producing, and that's where they want to be. That's where they're going to
Yeah.
stay. They don't want to edit. And, you know, to each their own. But if you have ambitions to move into a different role, whether it's a lateral move or upward move or whatever, yeah, you need to make yourself make it known that you're a valuable
Yeah.
piece.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, going back to the beginning, when you started this role, we spoke about you rising up, doing lots of local jobs, and kind of like building a small network that way. And when this job opportunity came up, did it come to you, or was it something that you went and found?
I went and found it, and I think 90% of the time that's how it's going to work, if not more. And
Did you
it for
find that in a job listing? Is that?
no, I'm not sure if I mentioned it or not. I did um a PA gig a while back for this show, and that was a random. I didn't know anything about the show, and I had to drive to it. I had to, you know, make arrangements to stay. I wasn't getting compensated for lodging. Those are some of the sacrifices you have to maybe determine that you want to make. And for me, that's what I was doing, and I was committed to it. So anyways, long story short with that, I met the supervising producer on that show, and for me it's about you get in those roles. I mean, I knew what I wanted to do. I knew I didn't want to be a PA. I was open to other things that may come up in terms of opportunities. So I didn't want to, you know, narrow down too much. But for me, it was always important to say who, not how many connections can I make while I'm doing this, but who are the people to connect with?
Yeah, great,
Who
smart.
are the right people to connect with? Because those relationships, if you maintain them, you'll find out those are the ones that are going to be worthwhile. Whereas a lot of ones you might come about, or might come about, are a little bit more superficial, where it's not gonna carry out to anything, which is fine too. But I don't have time for that. I don't have with where I'm at in my life, in my mid-30s, and I have a family. It's about meeting the right people and maintaining those relationships, and I think that those should, not all the time, but should come relatively easy, because if you have an eye for people that are open to helping you and want to help you and care about you, you're going to care about them. And that's what the relationship comes down to. And that's really where you're going to find that, hey, down the road, maybe an opportunity is going to come up where you're considered.
Yeah.
And it's not just superficial.
Yeah. And it's very much about finding those people that you bond and connect with, and just nurturing that relationship.
That's right. And that when I was doing the PAing stuff, like I said, I knew that was something I didn't want to do forever. And I was hoping it would be a short-lived thing with kind of where I'm at in my life. But to me, I saw it as a necessary step. And, it did enable some of those forge some of those relationships to be able to happen. And I kept in touch with that supervising producer. And when there became an opportunity, I had happened to reach out around the right time. And some of it was luck, to be honest. And kind of went from there.
You made your own luck.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's a good way to put it. I like that.
You're the perfect example of a method which I have said timeless times. It's easy to kind of do a scattergun approach, where you will reach out to as many people as possible, thinking, well, if the number's greater, the chances are, if I can hit like 1% of 100 people, then one person's going to get back. But the reality is, the more laser focused you are with building relationships, the better the results you're going to get, because the bond is going to be so much stronger, and you're going to be more top of mind.
Yeah, and I think early on, it's good to have that mentality going into it. But early on, you might be reaching out to tons of people too, just to be able to find people that maybe somebody that you want to carry on a relationship. And then as those become evident, then you stick with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you have no contacts whatsoever, you need to find where the target is.
Which was that was kind of where I was at. So that was like first step. It's like, okay, let me flood people with LinkedIn and emails and everything, and try to get some sort of traction here.
Yeah. So it is possible for anybody else who has no connection to media, to film, to the industry that we and you are now in. It's possible for them to break into the industry, and it's not some kind of crazy code that you have to crack that's almost impossible. Like, anybody can do it with enough dedication and tenacity.
Yeah, and I think that for me, it's kind of the beginning of the road rather than the end. And I kind of look at it that way, and I'm always looking ahead. Even if I'm happy where I'm at, which I am, I'm not, you've got to be proactive in a sense that you're avoiding becoming complacent, or if you're working on a bigger show, to where you get kind of pigeonholed into a certain role that, maybe you want to progress from and grow from there. But those opportunities aren't always going to come in a linear upward trajectory. And
Of
sometimes it
course.
might mean taking a step back. I mean, that was a big thing I had to learn early and determine if I wanted to do. I mean, even going, graduated with a doctor of physical therapy and working for a number of years and then saying, okay, I'm going to transition to something else that I know nothing about and carry on with that. So it does,
But you
yeah,
smashed
but
it.
you have to figure out what you want, what your priorities are, and do
Yeah.
what makes you
Yeah.
happy, but also be realistic about what you need to make your lifestyle, your means fit your lifestyle.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you'd had some trial and error. You tried a few things, you realized, and then you went and followed the path, and it's worked out really, really well for you. And I'm really pleased. I'm really happy to see where you are, because I remember when we did the technical workflow course together, and you were just really unsure where to go and what to do, and the next steps. And to see you here now, your both feet firmly in the door and on the ladder on the way up, and the next step is editor. It looking back, it feels like a short amount of time. I'm sure at the time, a year and a half away feels like a long time, but it looking back, it went by pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean it is crazy how quickly it goes, and I knew that going in, and I was like, if I'm going to do this, I need to fully commit. And once I made that decision, then I said, okay, well, let's not waste any time here. I'm not getting any younger. So continue to try to step out of my comfort zone and continue to learn and grow in that direction is what the work priority became.
Yeah. Great. Well, I really hope to get you back on here when you're in another year and a half, when you're editing and you've got a team underneath you.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to catch up, and I appreciate everything you're doing for the editing community. It's
My pleasure. No, I love
such,
this, and I love hearing from people like you who are making the dream happen. It makes it
well,
all worthwhile.
I'm fortunate enough to have had you as a friend that's been able to give me some words of wisdom to
Thank you.
help me fulfill this path.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm really happy.
Yeah,
It's been great.
absolutely.
It's been a pleasure. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, again, appreciate you having me on.
Oh, my pleasure. All right. Hopefully, you've picked up a few tips from Matt's journey, because there definitely is a necessary need for a tenacity. When you are trying to switch careers, it can be very daunting as a mid-career switcher, to have no gap essentially between your old job and the new job, video editing, because you have a lot more responsibilities than someone who lives with family, etc. So having downtime between the two jobs is a lot more risky. And so having the tenacity to have focus, follow through, build those connections before you make the leap has really, really paid dividends for Matt. And if you are feeling a little stuck, a little wary, or you don't know what steps to take next, then come say hi. Come sign up for Unsplice Pro, because in there we have a community of people all going through the same thing, sharing tips. And of course, I'm there. And you can ask me any questions you like about what to do next and how to build out your portfolio and how you can make that transition without or minimizing the downtime between the two careers. All right. Thank you so much for listening. And well, I'll see you next week. All right. Take care. Bye.